Welcome to the second Pipnotic Symposium for the 2nd of October 2019. Today we're going to talk about market structure. Sorry, my Irish accent just kicked in there. Market structure, what is it? Well, market structure is essentially a collection of tools that you use to show a perceived structure of the movement of an asset. Okay, and we use trend lines, the Pipnotic, because this is just a really nice, clear, visual way of viewing this kind of information. I'm just going to remove all of the functionality of the software so we're left with clean charts. So we can just look at this and let's have a quick example. Okay, so market structure, how would we do this? Well, we want to draw trend lines, and for trend lines we have the mark of a high, a low, a lower high, and a lower low. Okay, and we can only connect point 1 to point B if the low has been moved beyond by bleeding price, which it has. So the trend line would go from here to here. Okay, and the opposite for upward sloping trend lines. So we have a low, we have another low, and we have a high. We can connect these two here because price moved beyond the most recent swing high once it left. Okay, so super simple, nothing magical, there's nothing proprietary about this. It's just normal standard vanilla ways for drawing trend lines. Okay, so what we have done there is we have identified trend lines that are sloping, okay, moving up and down slightly at varying degrees here, but we also have trend lines that are flats. Okay, so horizontal trend lines. And this is also used to define market structure. And I use these quite a lot. And while I don't talk about this that much, while I don't talk about market structure in the videos all that much, the theory is still being used when I'm trading. And these past couple of videos that I've gone over, I've talked an awful lot about price that respected an area for a while and then finally cut through. This is essentially market structure failing. So we have this area here. Okay, so we had a trend line that went from here to here. So a horizontal trend line. It was tested once, twice, and then from this area of supply, price caused market structure to fail. The market structure being this trend line right here. Okay, this horizontal trend line. And while I don't draw the trend lines that much, I'm almost always using the rectangle drawing tool to help show these, and I'll do that here. Okay, we can see here we have low, low, and then price move through it. So we could have a trend line that would look like this. Okay, it would look like that if we were using trend lines, but if using a rectangle, it's going to look like this. So I'm just going to do something like that. Okay, so we had market structure, tested it, and our price cut through it. The area of supply that caused market structure to fail is this one here. So this is the one that we want to use to trade here. Okay, and so the important thing to remember here is that if you have market structure that fails, it doesn't matter that it fails unless it consumes opposing supply or demand. Okay, and the reason I like to use rectangles is because you're seeing this. You're actually seeing when opposing supply or demand is removed. Here we have demand, test, and it's gone. Okay, so now it's consumed it. So we had a market structure, which was this trend line here, that was broken. So we had market structure failure, and we had demand that was consumed by supply. Okay, and so if you only have market structure failure without the consumption of opposing supply or demand, then it doesn't count. You can do whatever you want, but I will not trade an area of supply and demand unless it has consumed opposing supply and demand. So even if we have an upward sloping trend line and market structure is broken, so we have, let's say we connect these two here. Okay, so we have this. The trend line, is it broken? Yes, it is. Does that mean I'll trade this? Oops, wrong thing. Go away. Sorry. Does that mean I'll just trade this? No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean I'll trade that, because we want to see much more important information in order to make this decision. Okay, because first of all, we had this area here, It was tested once and twice, and then price finally moved through it. Okay, you need to see opposing areas of supply and demand being consumed combined with market structure failing. And if you are seeing supply and demand that is being consumed by opposing supply and demand, well, then obviously you're going to see market structure failing as well. You're not going to be seeing these sloping trend lines, but you are going to see horizontal trend lines, horizontal market structure failing. Okay, so this is super important, and this is why I don't talk about these sloping trend lines that much, because they can often encourage trades that are not valid. Okay, and so this is just a really important point that I want you to pay a lot of attention to. So if we have a look at another example, let's have a look at the Euro US dollar. Okay, and here you want to see areas where supply or demand has been consumed, and we'll find something here that's very clear if we can find one. Okay, so let's have a look here. You can see that we're on the hourly chart. You can see here that we've had tests. We have support becomes resistance, test, test, and so this is telling us that we should probably have a rectangle somewhere in here. Okay, I'm just going to remove that. We're going to refresh this. Go to the smaller time frame and we'll have a look at that. You can see here it is. Here we have supply, tested, tested, and now it's gone. What's the origin of the move that was able to consume this supply? It's down here. Okay, the long green candle, the origin of the move that moved through the supply started here. So you move this to here. Okay, like that. So this is the area that we would look to buy at once price returns. Okay, all things considered. And so it's really important that you're also using rectangles, because this shows you, instead of like a very small price level, a precise price, it's showing you a zone. And so you want price to move through these zones. We have an area like this. You don't want, I mean, if this candle would have closed above the low here, we would have market structure failure, but we would still not have the consumption of opposing, in this case, supply. Okay, so you have to be super careful with this. Okay, this is why, and I'll reiterate, it's so important to use rectangles, because this becomes a lot clearer. One of the reasons that I like to use trend lines as well is it helps me define trends. So if you go on like the bigger time frame here, you can see super clearly that we have a high, a low, high, and a low. This gives us the opportunity to define the structure of this market here. Okay, and so it's just showing us that we have supply that's in charge and demand that's being consumed by the supply. Okay, it's super simple, but the most important thing to remember is that you shouldn't overcomplicate it. Use trend lines if they help. If they don't help you, then don't use them. The most important thing to focus on is supply and demand. Trend lines are simply visual aids as to what price is doing and if price is respecting historically respected areas of support and resistance. Okay, if we have another look at one more example before we wrap this up, we have this area here that was tested. Okay, so the move down into the area originated from here. This is the latest push down into this area prior to it being consumed. So this is the area that we would be interested in to sell at, around here. Okay, if we would have had a trend line and would have gone that, then you would see, yes, well, price did cause market structure to fail. It actually traded below that. Does that mean that we would trade here? It doesn't. It doesn't mean that at all, because you can't see the size of this area of demand based on a trend line. You do need to use the rectangles. Cool. Well, I'm not going to beat this to death anymore. I hope this is clear. If not, chuck your questions into the chat forum. And also note that we now have an audio channel. And the electricity just went out again. I can see we've had a lot of trouble with electricity today. But we have an audio channel in the Pipnotic channels. And there, if you want, you can kind of log on and you can and you can start discussions. And I'll be in there probably a couple of times a day, and you can jump in if you like, and we can talk about different things using audio instead of typing. Some people prefer that, and I think it's just a nice way to share trading ideas as well. Good, well, I'll leave it at that. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, type them into the chat. Thanks.